Today we get into the prediction business. We're going to go and really look and have a deep dive of what could potentially happen to the real estate industry in light of the NAR $418 million settlement that was proposed on Friday. Now, again, these are predictions, the things that actually have happened, things that we know are coming down the pike. Those are in my previous videos. Those are the things that we actually know what's actually changing, what's not changing, and things of that nature. So what we're going to do today is getting more into the prediction game. Now, here's the important distinction. These predictions, these are things that are logical, at least in my mind, and just analyzing, once this domino falls, what this can mean for this other industry, what this can mean for real estate agents. So some of them are going to be 99.99% certain that are going to happen. Now, some of them are going to be a little bit further, less in the probability index. Now, it's important to note that these are not conspiracy theories. For those types of opinions, go to another channel. This is going to be some predictions that I can logically defend, and I'm going to do just that in all the predictions that we get into. So with that being said, let's get into the prediction game. Again, let me know if I miss any though. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know if you disagree with any one of them. So we're going to get started. I'm going to start by naming them in no particular order. I'm numbering them in no particular order so we can keep a good count. So number one, NAR memberships are going down. Now this one is at least a no-brainer, at least in my opinion. I was just commenting or replying back to the comments here on the previous videos. I've seen multiple comments already saying, hey, I am canceling my NAR membership. Some are including leaving the industry altogether. So some of the commenters that are agents are leaving the industry altogether. So a lot of agents feel disillusioned, and I understand it. A lot of people feel like NAR sold out. Now, many of these opinions are coming from an emotional state, and really didn't understand what was being done or wasn't being done up until they heard about it on Friday. So it's very easy to cast stones at NAR because it's NAR. But at the end of the day, I do believe with almost 100% conviction that, well, actually, it's conviction is right, but the probability, the conviction is 100% that NAR membership is going down, but the probability of that, I feel, is 99.99% that NAR membership is going down, which leads me to the next prediction for what the $418 million settlement, along with all the other settlements that are going to happen, will mean. There's going to be less real estate agents in the near future. A lot of agents, remember, in 2023, about 49% of agents had done 1 or 0 transaction. A lot of agents are going to go away. If that was happening when the buyer agency commission was guaranteed, if you will, or it was a little bit significantly easier, if you will, then folks that were doing 0 to 1 transactions, they're not going to be able to sustain their real estate license in hopes of getting a $6,000, $9,000, $12,000, $15,000 commission that they didn't necessarily have to build a skill set in building some value proposition for buyers to work with them, right? So for them, in their mind, the buyer agency commission was going to be there come heck or high water. So less real estate agents are going to be around in the near future. Now, MLSs are going to lose control, at least in my opinion. Now, are they going away? I don't think so. But in the light of this information, or the commission compensation, or the compensation going away in these MLSs, that you can't necessarily talk about the compensation that a particular home is offering, or a particular homeowner is offering, well, there's a vacuum there. So that's going to leave some opportunities for competition. That's going to leave some opportunities from, well, we already know that there's the, what's it called? The American Real Estate Association or something like that. AREA. That is already competing against in NAR. So NAR, I call it NAR. I know it's NAR, but the additional competition is going to leave room for pocket listings. It's going to leave room for other startups, which we'll get into another point here, that are going to, again, I don't necessarily think it's going to replace, but it's going to compete, and there's going to be some additional things that are going to fill in that void. So the control, if you will, even though more agents are going to have access to the MLS, they don't have to be part of NAR or NAR. It's going to be a thing. So MLSs are going to lose a bit of control. So number 4, real estate transactions are going to operate more as commercial transactions, in the way that in the commercial real estate space, whenever you submit an offer, you are submitting the offer for compensation for the buyer agent, if you will, in the commercial side. So the best thing that I would recommend to you would be, if you're a residential agent and don't know anything about commercial, then having a conversation with the commercial agent and asking them, hey, how does a transaction work? Because I feel a lot of the way that commercial is being done is going to be reflected in the residential side, or at least an element of it, specifically with this commission component. Because on the commercial side, the way that the commissions are structured and or negotiated is different. So it would be good to understand how that side of real estate is handled. So that's number 4. Number 5, I think there's going to be a lot more consulting-based agents that are going to be charging by hour, agents that are going to be seen more as a consultant per se, that are going to be available by phone or maybe by person, if you will, just depend on what the agent is willing to do, whether it's in person or just online, if you will. But it's going to be agents that are more cloud-based agents, in the sense that they're going to help help buyers, including sellers, digitally, but more on a consulting-based hourly model. I think that that's what's going to happen. There's prediction number 6, more commission settlements are happening. That's not necessarily, that is a prediction, but that's also a 99.9% going to happen, because we understand that with this NAR settlement, again, the NAR settlement of $418 million, that was for the Sitzer Burnett suit, and squashing the copycat commission suits. But we also understand that there's a carve out. We understand that home services is still in that particular lawsuit, but they haven't settled, right? So without going and litigating or just going back into the entire history of that lawsuit, we understand that the home services entity and subsidiaries and all that stuff, those entities are still in the lawsuit. But also there's carve outs in terms of, although NAR tried to include everybody in the settlement to really help out the industry, I firmly believe that there's still some carve outs, such as the bigger entities. You have bigger brokerages that haven't settled, bigger brokerages that have over $2 billion in volume. They haven't settled, or they're not blanketed in here because the plaintiffs would not allow for that, right? So they're still going to collect that check. So the EXP Realties of the world, the Compasses of the world, all the other major brokerages, they still are out there and are looking to, there's a commission check. There's still a settlement check that the plaintiffs, aka attorneys, are looking to obtain. So they carved those out from the bigger entities perspective. Now for the agents that are members of NAR, you're good to go, if you will, from a liability perspective, but from the pocketbooks of the entities themselves, they are not. So more settlements are coming on board. So don't be surprised that home services here within a couple of hours comes out with the statement saying, hey, we have settled for, if I had to guess, random guess, no relation to anything, this is not even part of the predictions, I would guess that home services is settling for $35 million. A little bit based off of volume and just seeing how how much they settled for. It was $83.5 million. Keller Williams settled for 70. Remax settled for 55. NAR settled for $418 million. So home services is that fifth entity that was in the Sitzer Burnett suit. I'm going to give them $35 million. That's my guess. So let me know in the comment section, higher or lower. That one is not part of the predictions. Technically it is, but it's not part of the predictions. It's something that let's follow that more into the conspiracy theory. No, it's not a conspiracy theory, but forget I ever said that. But if I get it right, please give me credit. All right, so number 7, new startups. There's going to be a lot of new startups that are going to bridge this gap in some way, shape, or form in order of trying to find more, or trying to help buyers that really can't afford the representation any longer. Or there's going to be startups that try to fill this niche. Now, how do I know that? Well, partly because I can't tell you of the startup that I'm thinking about right now. I'm kidding, but I really can't tell you about that startup. You know that, or you may or may not know, I actually have a startup already that started 3 years ago. It's called Agently. So one of my co-founders and I, we spent all of Friday talking about potential ways to support agents in this particular situation, and also supporting buyers at the same time. So being that bridge between the two, so we're both can benefit in a substantial way. So new startups are being formed or have been talked about for the longest time. There's going to be new startups that spin up as we speak. We don't know what they are yet at the moment, but we understand that those startups are going to really see an explosive growth if they hit the market just right and solve the problem that has been created through this particular situation. So expect that to happen. Prediction number 8, I think listing agents are going to be in a race to the bottom. I think listing agents that we already understand that there's some animus between listing agents and buyer's agents. And the way that I say that, and the reason I say that is because just look at Facebook groups and how their position that they're taking. So for those listing agents, there's a lot of, how can I say this? It's almost taunting. It's almost like, haha, whatever. So I'm going to be fine. I've always been listings. That's why I always said listings to last. And I'm going to be good and all this other stuff. So for them, what's going to happen whenever they're in these living rooms, prediction, again, that's a prediction. What's going to happen in those living rooms is they are going to make it as easy as possible for the home seller to execute that listing agreement, regardless if there is a buyer agent compensation on the other end of that listing agreement or not. Meaning, with these listing agents that are going into that living room, they're trying to secure as many listing contracts as possible, as many listing agreements get executed as possible. And what better way to get that listing signed than saying, hey, well, the buyer, they can pay their own agent, right? So for me, I'm only gonna charge X, Y, and Z. So when they're in that living room and that front door is closed and that listing agent doesn't necessarily have to portray one version of themselves or not to the general public, I believe that that's what's going to happen. There's going to be a race to the bottom, and they're going to do anything and everything to compete to get that agreement signed. And it's not gonna take long before they're cutting out the buyer's agent from that particular agreement. It's going to be a race to the bottom. Again, that's a prediction that I believe is substantiated, at least the way that I see it. All right, so what number was that? That was number 8. Listing agents will race to the bottom. Number 9, more lawsuits in real estate transactions. Folks, there's going to be a lot more buyers that are going to be unrepresented, which means that there's going to be a lot more individuals that are going to feel a certain type of way when something doesn't go their way. Right? So we understand that here in the United States, we're a lawsuit-happy culture, if you will, so we can get sued for anything and everything. We recognize that. So whenever there's a transaction, especially with a buyer that is paying a substantial amount of money, if they feel slighted in some way, and if there's going to be an attorney that picks up a lawsuit. So I feel there's going to be a lot more lawsuits. So from the listing agents, there's going to be more liability. From the home seller, there is going to be more liability. From a buyer, there's going to be a lot more litigation with real estate transactions. So what does that mean? That means that attorneys are getting richer. So not only are they collecting 40% from the settlements that are happening right now, but there's an additional book of business that's going to happen. They're going to open up their real estate transaction portal here, if you will, just going to add a little tab to their list of services now. And every single attorney, regardless if they specialize in real estate in the past or not, doesn't matter if they're defense attorneys, doesn't matter if they're any type of attorney, they're going to have a real estate tab there, and they'll gladly advise you through a transaction, and also file a lawsuit in that case if something were to go wrong, right? So again, I think that the litigation in real estate is going to skyrocket. I believe that that's actually going to happen. Prediction number 10, I think there's going to be less first-time home buyers. I think there's going to be less first-time home buyers. I think there's going to be more of a renting class, because first-time home buyers are the ones that are going to get the short end of the stick in this particular ruling. Because if you're looking to purchase a home, you're scraping together as much as you possibly can in order to purchase that home for that down payment in order to meet the criteria to get a loan. So there's not going to be as much capital. Even if you wanted to hire representation, you're going to be very stressed in order to do so from a buyer's side. If the house that you absolutely want and absolutely dreamed of. That was the house for you. If the seller's not going to offer some compensation for the buyer's agent, or regardless of what the listing that they had with the listing agreement or the listing agent, and or if they were to play ball with a seller concession, so your buyer's agent would be compensated, the first time home buyers, I think that they're going to be impacted the most, which I kind of leads me to point 11. So prediction 11, I think that the hedge funds, so the private equity folks that purchase properties by the dozens, by the hundreds, by the thousands, I think they're going to get even larger. I think that these individuals now have less competition. They have less of a buyer pool that they're going to compete with, because for them, they're purchasing cash, and also there are not as many people that are going to be able to purchase these homes. So again, less competition is going to drive for them. They're going to be able to offer whatever they want, and they're going to continue purchasing. They could even overpay. It doesn't matter. It's just it comes to the lack of competition in that regard. There's going to be larger hedge funds, regardless if prices go down or up, which I do have a prediction on that we'll get into here in a little bit. For the hedge funds, it's going to not necessarily matter. They're going to pay the price. And prediction number 12, listing agents are going to be overwhelmed. If you were a buyer's agent that was already frustrated, or if you were a home buyer that was already frustrated back in the day when there was 10 offers on the house, 20 offers on the house, 50 offers on the house. If you were frustrated because listing agents didn't get back to you, you're going to be even more frustrated now, because listing agents are really not going to get back to you. So listing agents, I really do encourage you to go ahead and get some support now, because you're going to get calls from a million agents and a million buyers asking for details on the home. I think that from the buyer's agent's perspective, they're going to be reaching out and trying to see what type of compensation is being offered on a particular home. So if you're accustomed to getting 20 calls on a listing, get ready to get 100 calls on a listing. So get you a really good ISA, get you a really good inside sales agent, get you a good VA, get you a good support system, and or pick up the phone and respond to texts. Get ready to put in that work. Your phone bill is going to go up. Prediction number 13. I think you're going to have some ultra mega agents. Before, you would call them mega agents, but now we've reached the final boss. It's going to be the ultra mega agents. I think the agents that have been doing a massive amount of transactions, whether it's 100 transactions, 200 transactions, they're going to take it up to another level. There's going to be an obscene amount of transactions that those agents are going to now have. So a lot of it has to do with the rich are going to get richer in this particular layout. I do believe that that's what's going to happen. There's going to be agents that are going to do an obscene amount of transactions because of the business that's going to come to them at this point. So if you have a listing agent that is doing 100 listings a year, well, you have all of these individuals that are looking to work with them. All these people be coming to that pipeline, and no buyer's agent to speak of. Well, they're going to be able to, depending on the state that they're in, they're going to be able to do dual agency. They're going to be able to really absolutely clean up. So that's why, which kind of leads into the other point of the agents that are doing 1 to 2 transactions. I think that's not even the competition for these mega agents, but those agents that are right on that borderline of actually making a full-time income for their business, their transactions are going to go down, and or their commission is going to go down. So the average that they make on a home, they just received a pay cut. So for them, they're going to either get absorbed into a team, or those transactions that were going to be serviced by that agent that was just on that borderline are going to get absorbed by a mega or ultra mega agent. That's the new thing that I'm going to coin, ultra mega agent. Another prediction I have is buyer agency is not going away. That might not necessarily be too much of a controversial thing, but it's also not a certainty, if you will. But I don't believe that buyer agency is going to go away. It's going to look different. I think that you are going to need to do additional volume in order to make the same, if not more, than what you're currently doing. So again, I don't think that buyer agency is going to go away. Now, another prediction number 15 is that I think that there's actually going to be less leads to sell. I know that sounds a little bit different, a little bit crazy, but think about it. a lot of individuals that are right now, they find it pretty easy to just go onto Zillow, onto Realtor, onto whatever. Hey, give me information about this house. Hey, calling an agent. Hey, can you show me this house? Can you do that? Whatever. So when the home buyer or the lead is calling these agents that's looking to go and see a home, when they get met with, well, I'd love to show you that home, but you're going to need to execute this document here, this buyer agency agreement with me before I can show you that. Well, the individual that would happily go and work with 30 agents around the neighborhood because either they like wasting their time or they like just shopping around, or they have no intention of working with that client. They just that agent, they're going to use their cousin's license, but they just need all these other agents to work for them for free, which a lot of agents do right now. Well, in their eyes, there's 30 leads, if you will. So for each agent, that's an individual lead. But the moment that they meet that resistance from that first agent, hey, no, you can't go and see that home because I need you to sign this agreement first. After we do that, yeah, of course I would show you that. Well, the other 29 agents that would have gotten that same call from that less than ethical buyer, if you will, or less than ethical lead, well, they're not going to get that lead, right? So from a leads perspective, that gets funneled through online, let's call them online lead aggregators that would sell these leads gladly. Well, there's going to be less leads. So in a way, it's going to be higher conversion for you. The leads that you're getting, they're assuming you do what you're supposed to do in getting that agency agreement signed before you do any work on that. Well, it's actually going to be a higher conversion rate for you, but it's also going to be less of a time waste for you, because at that point you're going to be required to practice this type of real estate that in the past you had no issues hopping into the car and showing that home to somebody that may or may not be able to purchase that home and or may not have the intentions of working with you altogether. So from a leads perspective, it's going to actually clean it up. So that's really good. That's really good. At least there's that bright side, right? Prediction number 16, loan requirements will need to change. Loan requirements, this is one of those that I believe is at a 99% likelihood of happening. Loan requirements will need to change, especially if you're looking at the way that right now you could potentially get compensated from the buyer side, where you're looking at seller concessions. Well, with these seller concessions, are they going to count towards the limits that loan officers or the loans place on buyers, right? So we understand that if you're trying to rebate buyers right now, there's a certain limit that you can actually credit back or rebate back to the buyer. So these loan requirements will need to be adjusted. Think about the VA loan and the way that with the VA loan, the consumer, the buyer, the veteran is not able to pay the buyer's agent. So that would have to come from the listing side, right? So in this particular scenario, if the listing agent is not, or not the listing agent, if the home seller is not offering some compensation for the buyer's agent, does that mean that the veteran, the VA loan individual go unrepresented? Well, in this case, yeah, it does. So the way that these loans are structured right now, they will need to change. So the loan requirements will need to change. This is a little bit more on the less likelihood, if you will, because it's just something that I do believe is going to happen. But the 17th prediction, so 17th prediction, is that there's going to be another monumental lawsuit in about 2 years. Why do I say that? Well, I think that at this point, there's the whole adage of be careful what you wish for. Well, at this point, the home sellers that brought the lawsuit along with the attorneys, or let me rephrase that, the attorneys that helped the home sellers facilitate this lawsuit and really were pushing for this. Well, those home sellers, when they are looking to be, whenever they sell their home in the future and are buying in the future, well, there's going to be the same thing that they were advocating for. I'm not necessarily sure that that's something that they're going to like whenever they're experiencing it, right? So again, be careful what you wish for. So I think within 2 years, again, there's going to be a huge monumental lawsuit once again. I'm not going to say revert back to the way that things were, but I think things are going to look different. I think the fallout, I think the implications, I think the things that what NAR, along with a lot of real estate professionals, were saying was going to happen, it's going to ultimately happen. I think that people are going to find homes less affordable. I don't think prices are going down, which actually is a point that we'll cover here in a little bit. And I also think that there's going to be more litigation. More people are going to feel discriminated against, whether it's true or not. There's going to be that feeling that's going to happen where there's going to be a lot more questions than answers. There's going to be a big fallout and a lot of unintended consequences from as pure motives as these plaintiffs may or may not have had. I think there's going to be some intended consequences that's going to really is going to necessitate here in about 2 years another major lawsuit to really drastically change the way things have been adjusted to be. So here in about 2 years, I would say that there's going to be another lawsuit. At that point, the dust has settled. I think a new norm will have begin to establish itself, but I think at that point something else will change. Again, this isn't at the 99% likelihood of happening, but I do think that this does have a likelihood of happening. I just can't say it's 99%. Prediction number 18, title companies. You're going to need to change. Things are going to change for you. I think you're going to do a lot more direct transactions with parties without agents. So for you, it's I don't necessarily know if it's a good thing or bad thing, if you will, but I do think that the way that you're doing business is going to change a little bit different. I think you're going to do a little bit more coaching. I think you're going to be doing a lot, filling in the gaps of what real estate agents would typically do. I think that's going to fall on the title side, and the same thing with the lender side. So I think that the title companies, the way that you're doing business right now, it's going to look a little bit different. You're going to be doing the same in terms of clearing things, if you will, but you're going to be a little bit more involved from the buyer side, from the seller side. I think you're going to have a lot more direct transactions, again, without the agents being involved, because a lot more transactions are going to have less real estate agents attached to them. That's what I believe. Now, which kind of leads us to my prediction number 17. Other real estate professions are going to be impacted in some way, shape, or form. Now, that one sounds pretty obvious because it kind of is, I feel. Just don't necessarily know in what way. So I wasn't necessarily too confident in saying this way or that way that you're going to be affected. But I do think that there's a unintended consequence in between that a lot of folks that are not real estate agents are not factoring in, right? If listing agents think that it's just a buyer's agent side, well, you're a rude awakening, because when you sell that home, well, you're not going to leave that individual, your client, homeless. You're helping them purchase a home most likely, or one of your agents in your office is as well, right? So the same way that listing agents might have a little blind spot at the moment, well, the surrounding infrastructure of real estate is impacted. We talked about lenders already. We talked about title companies, but what about inspectors? What about appraisers? What about home stagers? What about additional individuals that are typically either referred internally, well, not internally, but are referred by real estate professionals that let's call it normal consumer would not necessarily think to bring into the transaction. So I think that other real estate professionals are going to be impacted. Again, I don't feel comfortable right now saying in what way, shape, or form. I just think that there's some individuals that touch real estate just from maybe meeting a client, a buyer every once in a while, a seller every once in a while, but that's because of the referral from a real estate agent. So I do think that you're going to be impacted really in a significant way. I just can't necessarily tell you exactly which way. Prediction number 20. This was kind of along the same lines, but I think there's going to be less real estate schools. I think there's going to be less real estate agents. I think that the real estate schools that exist right now, I don't necessarily think there's going to be an abundance of real estate schools in the future. I think that they're going to adopt more of an online model at this point, and really there's going to be a consolidation of real estate schools that end up happening. So I think that that's, in my mind, I feel like that's an obvious one, because I do kind of see that already with some friends that have sold their companies to larger real estate schools, some personal friends that have done that. So this consolidation is something that I do think is going to happen. I think that at the end of the day, the real estate schools, you already know the ones that are the major ones are going to continue to get larger, much larger, because the mom and pop real estate schools are not going to be able to sustain themselves. Speaking of small and pop entities, the small real estate brokerages are going away. I think that a lot of real estate brokerages are going to end up getting absorbed by the larger entities. I feel there's going to be less transactions. I feel like there's going to be less real estate agents. And not real estate transactions in the sense that there's going to be less people that purchase homes, or less transactions of homes, if you will. I just think that there's going to be less transactions that involve a real estate agent. That's what I mean. So I think that in that particular regard, I don't think the smaller real estate brokerages that were making just enough to keep their brick and mortar going, get their lights going and all that fun stuff, or keep their lights on, I don't think that they're going to be able to sustain this particular new norm. So I think they're going to end up selling their book of business. I think they're going to get absorbed. So I think the online virtual model with the EXPs, the Reals, the LPTs, I think they're going to continue to thrive in this particular world. And again, I think that the smaller brokerages are going to get absorbed by the bigger entities as well. That's what I believe. So that was number 21. Now, number 22. So prediction number 22, I don't think real estate prices are going down. I know that's a big component. That's a big thing that was argued by the plaintiffs. So they were winning the court of public opinion, if you will, but I don't believe that that's what's going to happen. Now, I've mentioned this in previous videos, but if you could run the case study, there's no way to do it, but if you could run a case study of agents did not exist, like from today until 12 months from now, 24 months from now, 36 months from now, I don't think that you're going to see a dip that you're claiming is going to be there. I don't think that the commission is what's inflating real estate prices. There's a lot of other factors out there that are actually doing that. I don't believe that pointing that blame of why home prices absolutely exploded are the reason why. So I don't believe real estate prices are going to go down, but I want to hear from you. Let me know what unintended consequences are going to happen as a result of this particular fallout. What do you think? What do you think about my list? I think I went through 22 different predictions. Again, some of them I feel a little bit really good about. Others, maybe not as much. I think that is the likelihood. There's a path to it, but I can't necessarily say it's a 100% certainty. So let me know in the comment section down below. What did I miss? What did I get wrong? I really want to hear from you, and I'll catch you on the next one.